Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 146 based on novel. So let's start. Bai Zhon. Bai Ying. Bai Jiao. Bai, I want your Bai Jiao, and I want your whole Bai Jiao to die for my son. It was not until after the good film cut that Sun Shuo suddenly turned his eyes. At this moment, the fighting spirit in his body burst out of his body. With a wave of his big hand, the red and yellow fighting spirit immediately condensed into a big knife. When his body moved, he wanted to rush away in the direction of the Bai family. However, at this time, just as Zhuo Lin and Zhuo Bentang slowly outlined a smile, in the hall, behind Sun Shuo at the moment, there was a loud cry. Master Sun, your aristocratic son. Something happened to him. When the voice came, Sun Shuo, who was angry, suddenly turned around. At the same time, he cut down the big knife in his hand. Suddenly, a red and yellow knife light suddenly shot out and crossed the two people running in the hall. Although they were lucky not to be hurt, a dead body carried in their hands was knocked to the ground by the strength contained in the light of the knife. Then, Sun Shuo wanted to kill, but at the next moment, the expression on his face was suddenly solidified. Because when he saw clearly the clothes and the general outline of the body lying on his back at the moment, Sun Shuo immediately recognized it. The body is his eldest son, Sun Hanshi, who has just died a few days. Hanshi. The grief in his heart could no longer be suppressed at this moment. Sun Shuo squeezed and burst his weapon. Then the next moment, he appeared next to Sun Hanshi, who had died. His hands picked up Sun Hanshi's body from behind his neck. Hanshi, I promise my father that the man who killed you will be broken into pieces and sacrificed to you with his blood. Sun Shuo tightly hugged Sun Hanshi, who had been dead in his arms for several days. His voice was low and trembling. The crazy killing intention in his words could not be contained. Sun Che's death made Sun Shuo very sad, which led him to devote all his thoughts to Sun Hanshi. But now, Sun Hanshi has also died, which makes Sun Shuo how to bear. Then, when Sun Shuo gang wanted to slowly put down Sun Hanshi in his arms, the remaining two conspicuous injuries on the latter's face attracted Sun Shuo's eyes. On the left face of the dead body, there was an extremely conspicuous huge fist print, which made Sun Shuo frown. He always felt that he had seen it somewhere. Then, on the right half face of the dead body, there was a clear scar. Looking at the shape of the scar, it was as if it had been smashed by the side of a brick. However, when Sun Shuo saw that scar, the expression in his pupils suddenly solidified. Not for anything else, just because he had suffered the scar on Sun Hanshi's face at the moment. A few months ago, in Hanshi City, Xiao Yan once left a clear ruler seal on his face. That blow made Sun Shuo remember it deeply until now. He hated Xiao Yan even more. At this moment, when he saw the familiar ruler seal again, Sun Shuo immediately thought of something. This is. Until a long time later, Sun Shuo opened his mouth slightly with trembling teeth. Although his voice was trembling, it was also full of endless Lingtian killing intention. Xiao Yang. The hoarse and low voice of words slowly floated in every corner of the hall. In a moment, the expressions on everyone's faces changed together. When they looked at Sun Shuo, they couldn't help being surprised. Can it be said that the real culprit who killed Sun Hanshi was Xiao Yang? For the name of Xiao Yang, although all the people present are strong fighters against the emperor, the name sounds like thunder in their ears, especially the achievements Xiao Yang made in Hanshi City a few months ago, which makes all the strong fighters present feel inferior. At the moment, as soon as Sun Shuo heard that Xiao Yang's name was spit out, the people present naturally shifted their attention from the Bai family. At the same time, together with the Zhuo family's attention, they also slowly moved away from the Bai family. What does this mean? You mean Xiao Yang killed Sun Hanshi? Rao is so. Zhuo Lin still has a trace of doubt in his heart. Although he has heard a lot about Xiao Yang's legendary achievements, he always thinks that Xiao Yang is only 1.5 emperors, and no matter how strong he is, he can never be the opponent of the strong ones. As for the Battle of Hanshi City, if Xiao Yang had not relied on the power of the road to make Sun Shuo careless for a moment, he could not have hurt the fighting emperor. Therefore, at the moment, Zhuo Lin could not help frowning and asking for a voice as soon as he heard the angry words from Sun Shuo's mouth. Who else but him? Only his strange weapon can leave this foot mark. Sun Shuo stroked the clear ruler mark on Sun Hanshi's right face with one hand. At the same time, his voice was extremely hoarse and said slowly. It is not hard to hear from this voice what terrible anger is surging at the bottom of his heart at this moment. Hearing the speech, including Xiao Yang in the crowd at the moment, all the people in the field couldn't help but cast their eyes on the past. Sure enough, on Sun Hanshi's right face, a scarlet ruler mark was standing slowly. Huh! When Xiao Yang saw the foot mark at the first sight, the look on his face under his black robe suddenly changed, and he was surprised at this. He didn't know anything about the so-called foot mark in his heart. It seems that some people don't want me to be in the dark. The dark eyes under the black robe slowly narrowed, and there was a little cold light lingering in the depths of the pupils. Suddenly, Xiao Yan raised his eyes and looked at the direction of the White House again. Now, among all the people in the ruins, except the three brothers, only Bai Ying knows his identity. Although the three brothers are strong against the emperor, they still dare not attack Sun Hanshi. From this point of view, they can not only dare to kill Sun Hanshi, but also blame Xiao Yang. I'm afraid it's only the Bai family. Bai Ying. With a low whisper in his heart, Xiao Yang took back his eyes. At the same time, another place in the crowd, Bai Zhon, who was also wearing a black robe, gave a sneer at the moment. In this way, no matter how Zhuolin guessed and affirmed in his heart, in the end, the spearhead will turn to Xiao Yang. However, just as everyone paid attention to the dead Sun Hanshi, suddenly, the whole hall standing at the feet of the people suddenly shook violently. Suddenly, all the people present turned pale and walked up and down the sky. Then we saw that in the deepest part of the hall, there was a thick stone gate that had been closed for many years. It was at this moment, with a sound of mechanism rotation, it was raised slowly. Suddenly, everyone's eyes in the hall were attracted in an instant. As the stone gate opened, dazzling golden lights shot out of it, making everyone present unable to open their eyes for a moment. Until after the good film was carved, when the golden light slowly dispersed and the people stared at it, they found that behind the stone gate, there was another stone chamber, and it was still a larger stone chamber. The opening of the stone gate immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the field. Even Zhuolin of the Zhua family is no exception. In the hall at this time, only those who were not attracted by the stone gate were Xiao Yang in the crowd and Sun Shuo, who was full of grief and anger at the moment. Boom! As the stone gate was completely opened, the scene behind the stone gate was gradually exposed to the eyes of everyone present at the moment. Behind the stone gate, there is a stone step with golden glass, which looks quite extraordinary. At the same time when the stone gate was opened, a mighty force full of vicissitudes and ancient meanings also spread from it. Suddenly, all the people present, who were aware of this force, changed their faces in an instant. Even Xiao Yang at the moment could not help but frown secretly, move his mind, and the fighting spirit in his body ran quickly, resisting all the oncoming oppression. Hey, it's good to have a strong momentum. It seems that this is the final place. In the Hua family, Hua Ba, the leader of the team, laughed and waved, and the streamers immediately burst out. The family children behind the double resisted the pressure. At the same time, they turned around and gave an order to the people behind them. Then, they took Hua Tianyi aside and first broke into the stone chamber in front of them. With the entry of Hua Ba and Hua Tianyi, the next moment, in the originally tense hall, it was like being thrown into a heavy bomb. Almost in an instant, it made the hall boil violently like an oil pan. Go! A cry came out from the mouth of all the strong fighting emperors present. Suddenly, all the people in the hall burst out one after another, and human figures rushed towards the stone gate like arrows off the bow. In the middle of the hall, there were a lot of people, chasing after each other, and they rushed into the stone gate. In a short moment, all the strong fighters on the field had entered behind the stone gate. Until now, Xiao Yang in the hall moved, followed at the end of the team, and also followed in. When they entered the stone gate, they looked up and found that there was indeed a unique cave in the stone gate. Compared with what the outside world can see, at this moment, what is presented in front of everyone is a tall stone platform that can't see the end at a glance. The layout of the whole stone platform is like a pyramid. Steps accumulate one by one. When people look at it, they can see that somewhere on those stone steps, there is an irregular light group floating in the air. From the momentum and pressure from it, the objects in these light groups are also by no means unusual. Staring at these light masses, there are weapons, scrolls, or pills. In short, all kinds of natural materials and earth treasures are almost included. Seeing this scene, the eyes of all the people present could not help showing a hot light. It was now that they entered the ruins for so many days. Now, they finally saw these really valuable treasures. Naturally, the emotions in the hearts of the emperor fighting strong people present could not be endured anymore. Rush. Spirit level fighting skills. 4th level pill. I'm coming. Suddenly, a voice full of greedy words came out of the crowd in front. Suddenly, the people in the field immediately became boiling. At this moment, a group of strong fighters who had just stopped their body started again. At the same time, streamers of light seemed to fly towards the light groups on the platform. In almost everyone's eyes, it reveals a blazing light. At this moment, even the people of the 4 families were pushed behind by other powerful fighting emperors. In the face of these Qianzai and Dibao, these people will no longer take into account the so-called 4 families behind them. For them, as long as they can get these Qianzai and Dibao, get the spirit-level fighting skills, get the 4th level pill, what nonsense 4 families, nothing more than that. In the face of interests, any threat will be ignored by them. Pooh. On the stone platform, the overwhelming shadows sweep each other, and the sound of fighting continues to spread in the air. Then, over the high stone platform, there will be blood scattered, just like raindrops, leaving bright flowers at the bottom of the stone platform. However, in the short video, on the high platform, there were several strong fighters who were injured and retreated. Some people even fell into serious injuries, and their bodies flew out uncontrollably. Finally, they fell heavily under the high platform. The low and dull voice made many people jump with fear. These guys are all trying to die. Looking at the situation that has completely lost control in front of him, Xiao Yang's face is also very dignified under the black robe. These are the real strength of the strong man fighting the emperor. The war between the strong and the fighting emperor is a disaster. It is difficult for ordinary people to participate. At present, even if Xiao Yan is like this, he can only retreat and be careful. Of course, in addition to anti-inflammatory, there were also some other strong fighting emperors, including the 4 families at this time. All the leaders stood upright on one side of the stone platform, but did not choose to start first. Although the current situation is chaotic, it does not matter to them. Although the war in the field is fierce, only in the end is the time to really see the truth. However, when the strong fighting against the emperor was fierce, the stone platform under the feet of the people suddenly hummed and trembled violently. At the same time, the golden light of the colored glass on the stone platform was also suddenly prosperous. Then, the people saw that under the golden light, strange lines were gradually spreading out. When the shocking light showed in the eyes of the public, in a twinkling of an eye, those distorted lines were already at the feet of the people, and a huge array was condensed on the stone platform. What? Seeing this scene, the faces of all the people present were suddenly surprised. Even the heads of the 4 families could not help but change slightly. At this time, Zhuo Lin's face was just the opposite. His eyes did not focus on the array at his feet. Instead, he was constantly sweeping on every black-robed man in Shinju. Strange, where is that guy? With the completion of the huge array cohesion, the stone platform under the feet of everyone gradually stopped shaking. However, immediately after that, before everyone in the field recovered, in the mid-air of the whole stone platform, golden streamers condensed rapidly. In a twinkling of an eye, 10 huge golden light clusters stood on this void like a round of sun. Boom! When people stared, they only heard an earth-shaking roar. Then, the golden light was everywhere and the momentum was boiling. It was not until after a good film, the dazzling golden light gradually dispersed. Then, in front of everyone, there were 10 huge beasts. The 10 giant beasts are golden all over and look like a gorilla as a whole. Their arms are long and their legs are slightly short. They are strong and golden. Their golden tusks shine with a cold luster. People can't help but fear. A pair of scarlet animal pupils are filled with an extremely strong smell of killing. Even if the strong fighting emperor sees this, the heart is also dare not have the slightest underestimate. In addition, on the body surface of these 10 orangutans, there are cumbersome array runes, which are also full of light. And on the body surface of these orangutans, there is a strong gas-fighting barrier. As long as there is this barrier, it is impossible for them to defeat them easily even if they are the strong ones. At the moment of the appearance of the 10 gorillas, the people on the field immediately cast solemn eyes on them. Until this time, the people of the 4 families slowly raised their heads, and their sharp eyes swept over the people present and directly looked at the dozens of energy light groups on the stone platform. At the same time, Xiao Yang in the crowd, a pair of dark eyes, also passed one by one on the middle duty strongman on the stone platform, and finally stopped on a light mass wrapped in a mysterious scroll. Xiao Yang is not interested in those miscellaneous objects. At the moment, the only thing that can make him move is this scroll. Although we don't know whether this is a fighting skill or a skill, we can be sure that if it can appear on this stone platform, its product level will not be low, and this is the reason why Xiao Yang made a move. Ah! Just as Xiao Yangang was about to leave, the shrill scream suddenly sounded on the stone platform. Everyone looked quickly, but their faces changed fiercely. They saw that the giant warcraft that had fallen down began to move at this moment, and their goal was the people on the stone platform at this moment. After these gorillas landed, they immediately waved a pair of huge fists and killed the nearest person. The strength of this group of orangutans is all at the level of fighting emperor. At the same time, the momentum is extremely frightening. In a short moment, within 100 meters around the stone platform, they have been stained with red blood. Several strong fighting emperor were blown away by their fist. For a long time, the strong smell of blood spread on the stone platform, which is shocking. The strength of these animals is so strong that we must not underestimate it. The appearance of this scene led the other strong fighters in the field to no longer dare to show the slightest carelessness. However, those who were close to it moved their bodies quickly and retreated from it. Under the stone platform, Xiao Yang frowned when he saw this scene. These giants are all fighting emperor-level strength. Now they kill like tigers into sheep. Except for some strong fighting emperors who are not weak in strength, ordinary fighting emperors have no strength to compete with them. They often fight for 2 or 3 rounds, and will be driven back by these giants. What a tyrannical array that can condense such a powerful guy. What a terrible existence the owner of this relic was. Haha, the monkey's strength is good. Let me have a try. Suddenly, in front of the crowd, Huabuku heard a arrogant and uninhibited laughter. Then, the soles of his feet stepped on the ground fiercely, and a corner of the stone platform suddenly collapsed. His body was also shot out like a shell, shooting at one of the 10 orangutans. Bang! Then came the explosion sound of Huabi's fierce collision with him on the stone platform. In the twinkling of an eye, everyone saw Huabi's body retreating. At the same time, the gorilla fighting with him retreated hundreds of steps backward uncontrollably, but then it was forcibly stabilized by him. Wow! Seeing this scene, the people on the field suddenly burst into an uproar. They didn't expect that the strength of the orangutan was so terrible. Under the action, it was Hua, who was born as a 3-star fighting emperor, who couldn't kill him here. Hey, what a strange array. I can't imagine that I can't easily smash his body protection array with my strength. I can't be careless this time. With a low smile in his mouth, Hua didn't dare to be careless in his heart, but then his eyes crossed the gorilla and looked at the top of the stone platform. Of course, he couldn't really see there from his current position, but Rao was so. When Hua looked at the top of the stone platform, there was a hot color in his eyes. It can be seen how precious things exist there. Then Hua suddenly moved. Suddenly, he turned into a streamer, quickly swept over the people on the stone platform, and then bypassed the giants at a lightning speed. After that, he first launched an impact on the stone platform. No, this guy wants to get the baby first. Seeing this scene, the other 3 families under the stone platform also changed their faces one after another. Then, the 3 families looked at each other. Then, they stepped on the void, turned their body into a meteor, and quickly chased Hua above the stone platform. At the same time, others on the stone platform also looked at those energy light clusters again. In a twinkling of an eye, in the middle part of the stone platform, the middle emperor fighting strong men fought with each other in order to compete for those energy light groups. Coupled with the terror of the 10 giant animals, for a moment, the situation in the field had become a pot of porridge. After crossing the crowd, the people of the 4 families are also chasing each other in the upward part of the stone platform. From time to time, there will be fighting and shooting, and even the people below will occasionally suffer from fish in the pond. As for Xiao Yang at this time, under his black robe, a pair of dark eyes moved in the depths of the fire, and his eyes stared at the energy light mass wrapped with the mysterious scroll on the stone platform until a certain moment, when his feet changed slightly. Tianjua's step broke out at this moment, and his body shape also disappeared on the stone platform in a moment. On the high stone platform like a pyramid, there was already a riot. Because of the participation of these 10 giants, it became even more chaotic. At this time, even the strong and forces who want to take advantage of the fisherman's power can no longer stand idly by, because the task of those 10 giants is to kill everyone on the stone platform. They are no exception. Over the stone platform, facing the obstruction of many powerful people, those light groups seem to have their own intelligence. They even turn automatically between flying and sweeping, avoiding all the big hands. Bang! On the stone platform, human figures sweep each other, and constantly the sound of fighting comes out in the air. From time to time, a figure spits blood and falls. Finally, it falls heavily on the stone platform below, smashing the whole stone platform into cracks like spider webs. Bang! The giant beasts kept waving their huge fists. Every time they waved them, they would shake the space. The powerful power made those who fought against the emperor turn pale. In a short moment, these 10 giant beasts had killed several powerful fighters in succession. From this, we can see how terrible the power of these 10 giant beasts is. Haha, this scroll is mine. Somewhere on the stone platform, a strong fighter hugged the ancient scroll and an old face that wanted to break free from his hands, revealing a hot smile under the light of energy. However, immediately after that, before he covered the scroll in his hand, another human shadow suddenly appeared from the void beside him. Then, a knife crossed his neck. Pooh. Driven by greedy interests, even those who are as strong as fighting the emperor will also be vulnerable. When the knife fell, the head of the man was separated. A strong man fighting the emperor died so wrongly that he couldn't see what the man who killed him looked like before he even died. At the moment of the old man's death, the scroll in his hand was also tightly held by another thin-faced old man. His heart was full of sarcastic sneers. The old man dared not be careless. A pair of cloudy eyes swept over the void, moved and wanted to leave here. Bang! Then, however, a huge body suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, it fell like a small mountain. Then, it fell from the old man's head. With only one punch, the emperor fighting strong man was severely blasted out. While the blood poured out of his mouth, the scroll in his hand was uncontrolled. Then it turned into a streamer and flew over the stone platform again. Immediately, just as the giant beast had just turned around, the scroll that broke away from the bondage and flew in the air was suddenly caught in the palm of the palm by a white palm protruding from the void. Then, Xiao Yang's body shape was completely exposed to the air. Looking at the scroll struggling violently in his hand, Xiao Yang held his palm harder, and his heart moved. The surging soul power in the center of his eyebrows suddenly burst out. In just a moment, the energy originally covered on the scroll was quickly removed by Xiao Yang. At the same time, Xiao Yang's scroll, which had been struggling violently, became quiet. Without hesitation, Xiao Yang's heart moved, and the ancient scroll in his hand was immediately included in the ring. At the same time, behind Xiao Yang, the giant beast also appeared again. The huge golden fist waved suddenly and hit Xiao Yang's head with a fist. Feeling the terrible wind coming from behind, Xiao Yang's face didn't move, and his head didn't turn back. A smile was outlined at the corners of his mouth. His heart was moved. The long-prepared painted black tent condensed out in front of Xiao Yang. Then, at the moment when the huge fist fell, Xiao Yang, wearing a black robe, had disappeared into the void. Hiss. One punch fell and found nothing except the void that was about to break. Roar. Suddenly, a startling roar came from the beast's mouth, and a pair of scarlet eyes suddenly turned. On the other side, on the void somewhere, Xiao Yang stepped out of the void gently. At the moment of appearance, his eyebrows under his black robe could not help holding together. He didn't expect that even though he had included the ancient scroll in the ring, the beast is still staring at him. Of course, in addition, several other strong fighting emperors on the stone platform also noticed Xiao Yang at this time. Even Xiao Yang's action of putting the ancient scroll into the ring just now was also seen by them. In a twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang was not only stared at by the giant beast, but also faced the strong fighting emperor of all parties. From this point of view, his situation was not very good. With this in mind, without waiting for Xiao Yang to act, the giant beast suddenly turned around. Although the body was huge, the speed was extremely fast. In a twinkling of an eye, the giant beast appeared in front of Xiao Yang again, waved his huge fist and smashed Xiao Yang's head again. Seeing the giant beast in front of him, Xiao Yang was cold and wanted to take action, but the remaining light in the corner of his eye caught a glimpse of several strong fighting emperors standing at random on the stone platform not far behind him. His fighting spirit gushed out of his body, as if he was waiting for Xiao Yang to take the initiative to offer Naji. Hum. With a cold hum in his heart, Xiao Yang didn't dare to be careless on his face. He twisted his body and hurriedly avoided the attack, but then the more violent fist attack came again. In the face of this monster, even Lian Xiaoyan had no countermeasures in a short time. Bang! Finally, after a violent collision, Xiao Yang was unable to resist the blow of the giant beast and was driven back by the blow. However, the giant beast in front of him bullied him again and wanted to give Xiao Yang a fatal blow. But at this time, under Xiao Yang's black robe, a black light like lightning suddenly burst out and collided with the oncoming giant fist. Boom! When the blow fell, Xiao Yang's body retreated a few steps back under the terrible air intake. On the contrary, the giant beast's clenched palm was forcibly expanded under the blow. At a certain moment, Xiao Yang's eyes clearly saw that there was a fist-sized crystal stone in the palm of the giant beast, which was constantly releasing energy for the giant beast. That's Spirit Stone. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang's eyes were frozen. At the same time, at the bottom of his heart, he also had countermeasures. From this point of view, the energy source of this giant beast should be the Spirit Stone in the palm of his hand. As long as it can be removed, I believe that the power of this giant beast will be greatly reduced. At that time, it is also the time for Xiao Yang to crack it. At the same time, in front of him, the painted black tent condensed in an instant. At the same time, Xiao Yang's body also tilted forward. The next moment, while Xiao Yang's body passed through the tent, it already appeared in the open palm of the behemoth in front of him. In the stunned eyes of the powerful fighting emperor behind him, Xiao Yang grabbed the spirit stone in the palm of his hand, and immediately pulled it out. He only heard a puff. The spirit stone fell into Xiao Yang's palm. With a move in his mind, Xiao Yang took it into the ring, and at the same time, his huge palm was suddenly clenched at this moment. In the eyes of the outside world, Xiao Yang's move was undoubtedly looking for death, but then, at the moment when the palm was closed, a fierce light burst out from the palm. Then the next moment, all the strong fighters present clearly saw that the indestructible palm of the giant beast was broken with a bang. This extremely abrupt scene in the field also made those who saw this scene feel a burst of horror in their hearts. Together with their faces, they couldn't help but become particularly wonderful. This guy, who on earth can smash the animal's claws? It's terrible. This guy's strength is unusual. We must not be careless. The crowd was filled with dignified words, and the sound continued to spread. At this time, Xiao Yang suddenly flashed his body and avoided the blow of the giant beast in front of him. Immediately, the palm under his sleeve robe turned over, and the spirit stone in the palm was included in the ring by Xiao Yang. After retreating for a while, Xiao Yang stared at it. Immediately, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth under the black robe. Sure enough, after losing the supply of the spirit stone, the huge palm of the giant beast forcibly shattered by Xiao Yang could not be recovered. At the same time, Xiao Yan also found that the huge body of the giant beast in front of him was no longer as solid as before, even the speed of its moves has slowed down a lot. Of course, this is also seen by those who fight against the emperor. However, they all attribute the reason to Xiao Yang Gang. Therefore, they don't have too much doubt. After receiving the spirit stones, Xiao Yang's eyes did not turn away. Compared with the so-called treasures in the light group, Xiao Yang liked these spirit stones more. At this time, the giant beast that failed to hit once again waved his huge fist and rushed at Xiao Yang. However, compared with before, Xiao Yang looked calm and abnormal. After losing a spirit stone, the strength of this giant beast has been reduced by more than half. Facing it, Xiao Yang will no longer have pressure. Hiss. Xiao Yang stepped back, and the palm under his sleeve robe suddenly clenched into a fist. The vigorous fighting spirit quickly condensed in Xiao Yang's palm. Then, Xiao Yang's soles stepped heavily on the void. Only a dull sound was heard. Xiao Yang's body immediately turned into a black streamer and collided with the oncoming beast at a lightning speed. Bang! There was a loud noise. Under the black robe, Xiao Yang's face looked sharp and fierce. Then, the green tendons on his right arm were angry. His seemingly thin body suddenly shook. Suddenly, the terrible giant force blew out along Xiao Yang's right arm. With one blow, Xiao Yang's body stood firmly in the void. On the contrary, the huge beast was blown out in an instant under Xiao Yang's fist. Finally, it fell heavily on the stone platform like a ladder below. The scene of such a huge contrast made many of the strong fighting emperors present cast appalled eyes on Xiao Yang. You know, just in the past, this giant beast was so powerful under the joint attack of many powerful fighters. Even if they saw the momentum of destroying the sky and the earth, they had to retreat. But at this time, in front of the black-robed man, this giant beast would become so unbearable. It's hard to imagine how terrible the strength of the black-robed man is. Of course, these people will not know the real reason, and they will not think that the mysterious strong fighting emperor shocked in their eyes is actually just a 6-star-and-a-half emperor, but it is slightly unusual. Then, Xiao Yang's body flashed again, and the terrible speed shocked the whole audience again. At the same time, on the burst stone platform below, the body of the giant beast also turned into a piece of debris and dispersed slowly. At the same time, Xiao Yang's mouth aroused a smile, and a backhand was to receive the second spirit stone into the ring. Looking at the scattered energy spots around him, Xiao Yang could not help frowning slightly. It seemed that, just as he thought in his heart, there were only 2 spirit stones on a giant beast as energy supply, and the location of the spirit stone was in the palm of the giant beast. He shook his head helplessly. In a moment, Xiao Yang turned slowly again, ignoring those powerful fighting emperors who cast surprised eyes around him, swept his eyes on the stone platform, and quickly fell on another giant beast. Then, just you. With a smile in his heart, Xiao Yang's steps moved. Immediately, his body turned into a streamer. In a twinkling of an eye, he had appeared in front of the giant beast. Roar. Seeing Xiao Yang's attack, the beast roared and clenched his fists, so he wanted to hit Xiao Yang. Seeing this, Xiao Yang smiled coldly, waved his big hand, and then a black streamer burst out. Xiao Yang's body also flashed again and came to the top of the giant beast. Hiss, hiss. At the same time, the black streamer from Xiao Yang's sleeves and robes soared with the wind. When all the strong fighting emperors saw it clearly, the black light had turned into a huge snake. In the astonished eyes of the people, the big snake twisted. While the huge body was twisting, it made a hissing sound in the air. Then, the strong snake tail bombarded with the oncoming giant fist. Boom. When the blow fell, the snake retreated violently. At the same time, the huge fist of the giant beast was forcibly opened under the deliberate force of the former. At the same time, the spirit stone held tightly was also exposed to the air of this week in an instant. However, at the moment when the spirit stone was just exposed, a flash of light passed between the big hands of the giant beast like lightning. At the same time, the outstretched palm of the giant beast was also blasted by a blow. Then, in the eyes of all the strong fighters present, the black painted shadow like a ghost stood abruptly above the head of the giant beast. When people looked at it, the palm of the shadow also fell on the forehead of the giant beast. As cracks gradually spread from the top of the giant beast's head, its huge body also stood like a statue. Immediately, after several breaths, a low bang sounded in the ears of all the powerful fighting emperors. Under the stunned eyes of everyone, another giant beast burst. From the beginning to the end, all this happened to the end, but it was only a short time of more than 10 breaths. In such a short time, a powerful fighter was so easily killed. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, the fighter would never believe it in his heart. This video ends here.